Hey, what's going on? What's going on, guys? Good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Welcome to the Black Financial Channel. That's theblackfinancialchannel.com. Today, we're going to talk about yet another bank that looks like it's trying to fail. This banking crisis is a little bit of a problem. It's not panic mode yet, but it is something you want to be aware of. So, I'm going to break down for you what's going on with Credit Suisse, which is the bank of the day that's really having problems, and why this is actually bigger and more concerning than Silicon Valley Bank. So get comfortable, buckle up your seatbelt. We're going to get started on the Black Financial Channel right now. Welcome to the Black Financial Channel. That's theblackfinancialchannel.com. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I'm from the Black Business School. On the Black Financial Channel, we talk about Black wealth and Black economics every single day, sometimes as much as 10 times a day under the B1 condition. The B1 condition is that we are Black first. Black first means we educate our kids. Black first means we break generational curses. Black first means that when they write that reparations check, we're going to know exactly where to invest it because we're going to be the most economically intelligent people on the planet. So if you agree with this philosophy, put a B1 in the chat. Also, shout out the city you're from. Please hit the thumbs up button. Let's get it started. Okay, so how many of you have heard about Credit Suisse Bank? How many of you, I see a lot of you on Instagram. My Instagram is the real Boyce Watkins. How many of you have been following what's been going on with the banks? A lot of you heard about Silicon Valley Bank. Did anybody hear what's going on with Credit Suisse? Give me a yes if you've been following what's happening with Credit Suisse. Credit Suisse is a bank that is approximately 4 times larger than Silicon Valley Bank. It's a European bank, of course. It's in Switzerland, but it still affects the global economy. They still trade on the stock market. In fact, I'm going to pull up Credit Suisse stock so you can kind of see what the stock price kind of looks like and what it's done over the last few years. Well, Credit Suisse is the next candidate for a major bank failure or major bank bailout. Credit Suisse is having some significant problems, and this is something that's really concerning in terms of figuring out what's going to happen with the economy. Now, economics is not an exact science, but I do have some thoughts on this. I've been spending the morning reading lots of articles, thinking things through, and sort of processing things in terms of what this might mean and some steps you might want to take to protect your assets. My mother called me yesterday, and she said, should I take my money out of the credit union? And let me just say this first answer I gave my mother is no. I told her no because the Federal Reserve and the government has really stepped up to protect depositors wherever you put your money. And the worst thing that can happen right now is for all of us to take our money out of regional banks. A lot of money has been taken out of regional banks, the smaller guys like the Silicon Valley banks and beyond, and been put into the major banks. And I think that I hate to see that because I don't really want to see the little banks disappear. But really, this is kind of a weird time because regulation has just been so poor. Decision making has been very, very bad. And so when you look at when you look at what happened with Credit Suisse, basically they tried to go and get more money from their better yet, let me say it like this. Their number one backer, which is the Saudi National Bank, refused to put more money into the company. They said, we're not going to invest any more money in this company. They said it's because we can't have more than a certain percentage of ownership in the company. But I think it's also because the bank has just done a terrible job of protecting its assets. And what typically happens with a lot of these banks is that when you give like that first little hint, that first little clue that you're having some financial problems, that's when the predators start coming. It's like when sharks smell blood in the water or people smell weakness, they start to sort of change their behavior. So here you see Credit Suisse stock. If you look at this stock, it's kind of sad. This stock, it literally was trading as high as $74 a share, and now it's down to $2 a share, $2.12. So imagine if you invested in this company in 2007 at $74 a share, and now it's worth a little bit more than $2. And that's pretty horrible. The company lost, I want to say, about $8 billion last year. It's a pretty big bank. It's I think, ranked number 45 in the world in terms of bank size with about 800 billion in assets. Now, they might have dropped a little bit since there was a little bit of a run on this bank, but not a complete run. And so ultimately, you have a scenario where one of the big concerns right now with the economy is that you can have a liquidity crisis. A lot of banks are just scared to do the things they need to do to create a functioning economy. Economies function well when money is being lent and money is circulating. Just like your air conditioner circulating air throughout your car, it keeps everything cool, right? Well, if your air conditioning gets cut off or all the air stays in one room, then the rest of the house is going to get hot. So basically, rather than letting money circulate through the economy, the big concern is that banks are just going to create what they consider what are called tighter credit markets. That's where you go try to get a mortgage for your house. You got good credit, you have a down payment, you're ready to go, and they say, no, thank you, we're not going to loan any money because we're holding on to our money right now. Think about your own life. I want you to think about, so let's talk about something. You guys know in the Black Business School, we have the first ever Black financial therapy department, specifically for Black people to deal with financial trauma, financial anxiety, a lot of the challenges we go through when it comes to economics, right? Well, one of the things that we talked about in financial trauma class, or when we were discussing the traumas we experienced and how it affects the way you invest, the way you support each other, the way you work together as a family, is we talked about how you feel when you loan money to a relative and then they don't pay you back. So what do you do? What happens to you? What do you think happens when you loan money to a relative and they don't pay you back? And you get traumatized by that. You're pissed off. You're mad. You're calling them up. They're not answering the phone. They get an attitude. They cop an attitude when you ask for your money back. Has anybody gone through that? What typically happens when you go through that? I bet most of you have experienced that. How many of you have experienced that? A relative not paying you back? Answer that question. And this is how I'm going to explain what's going on with the banks. What do? You say, well, that's why I don't loan money to family. That's why I don't loan money to relatives. That's why I don't hire family, right? Like because you had a business, you hired your cousin didn't show up to work because he was all smoking weed all day and you wanted to go kick his butt because he messed up your business, right? So basically that financial trauma, what does it do? It causes you to do this. You get your little money and you say, I'm not sharing this with nobody because if I let this go, it's going to be a problem. I have a relative who came into a couple $1,000,000. And I remember we had a really great investment project that was ready to make a ton of money. And we went to this relative and said, hey, we know you got a lot of the money in the family. Can you put a little bit toward this investment? Because it's a great deal. You know me, I never steal from you, whatever. And she just said no. She just said no. And that was it. Right. And I picked up on that. I picked up on the financial trauma because it clearly wasn't me because I've never done anything wrong. I was the responsible one in the family. But when it came time to come together as a family and make an investment that was going to make money, she refused to let go of her money because she had been financially traumatized by so many relatives who borrowed money and never paid her back. Well, banks do it. So think about this. So what happened? Well, our family, some of the relatives who did invest with me, we made a ton of money together, but she missed out. And also the family missed out because we could have really scaled up what we were doing with her participation. So the same thing happens when you talk about banks. Banks, when they get traumatized like this, when they're running into these liquidity restrictions, when they're not sure about economic conditions, when you have a lot of risk in the air, when you have a lot of fear in the air, when you have a lot of uncertainty, when your depositors might do a run on your bank just like that because somebody says something crazy on Twitter, banks do the same thing that my cousin did. They hold on to that bread. They do not lend it. They do not do the things that are necessary to create a functioning economy. Barack Obama had the same problem back in 2008 when Obama came into office. If you remember, Obama came into office under an economic thunderstorm. Kind of like the black football coaches when they let you take over the team after the team is like so bad that they can't win a single game. Well, Obama got elected right in the middle of one of the worst economic periods in the history of this country. So one of the first things that he did, because again, these politicians, they tend to work for rich people. They take care of Wall Street first. And so Obama, he was no different. He's a great guy, a lot of swag, great, beautiful family, but they're kind of owned, they're bought and paid for. The politicians are. That's what's wrong with their political system. So first thing they did was they bailed out Wall Street and they bailed out the banks. They wrote a $700 billion check to the banks and said, here's a bunch of money. We need you to jumpstart the economy. We want you to go out here and lend money and push the money out there. You know what they did? They said, no, buddy. No, thank you. Thank you for the money. We're going to just sit on this and wait and see what happens. But wait, aren't you going to use the money and circulate it and go hire people? No. We're just going to wait and see. Are you going to make any infrastructure investments that can put people back to work? No. Are you going to make loans so people can buy homes and get things? No. We're just going to sit on it because we're too scared right now. We're too scared to make a move. And this is the big fear that occurs when you have a situation like this. This is what I'm concerned about. Just like FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, you have nothing to fear but fear itself. Well, right now, the biggest thing I fear is fear. I really wonder how this is going to all play out in terms of banks doing their job and stimulating the economy, creating economic activity, whether it's going to affect how consumers spend and invest their money. The same way my mama called and my mama said, what should I do with my money? Maybe I should hold on to it. Maybe I should get it out of my bank, etc. Right? That's what we do when we're afraid. So anyway, I'm going to finish up with this. It won't take me much longer. And at the end, I'll let you guys know a stock that I actually am going to invest in, which is considered to kind of be a safe haven in this environment. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe. Also, at my website, boycewatkins.com, for the next few days, I have a list of basically, I did a mini training that you can have for free on 7 ways to fix your credit. A lot of us struggle with credit. Credit is not something you should ignore. You want to work on your credit in order to become an investor. Half of all Black college graduates default on their student loans, which creates credit problems later on. You want to sort of address that. There are secrets and there are ways you can fix it. So I'm asking you to please do that. At least take a look, have that awareness. So go to boycewatkins.com. I put together a short video training on 7 ways to fix your credit score in a reasonably quick fashion. Okay, so feel free to go to boycewatkins.com and pick that up. Also, of course, you guys know about my new book. It's called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. It is a bestseller. It's the #1 bestseller on Amazon right now in the public finance category. So you can either go to Amazon to get a copy, or you can go to my website, boycewatkins.com. Okay, so let's keep going. All right, so here are a couple of reasons that I feel that that you're having this, what I call a capitalism crash. Capitalism is kind of like the economic crack pipe of America, right? You got different levels of drugs. I don't use drugs. I don't use any mind altering substance. I don't. But you got different layers, different levels, right? You got maybe, but maybe I do use drugs. This is a cup of coffee, right? So I sip on the coffee. It gives me a little bit of a pick me up, but I'm not out here in the street, trying to sell my body to get more coffee. So it's not so it's not so heavy, but it still has an effect. You got things like cigarettes, maybe weed. Then you get into harder things, alcohol, hard liquor, stuff like that. And then you get the extreme stuff. You get the crack and the opioids, right? So the crack is pretty heavy, right? The crack might kill you. The crack will make you crazy. The crack really is like that jolt. It gives you these massive highs and these really terrible lows. Well, capitalism is the economic crack pipe of society. Well, why do I say that? Well, because capitalism in its extreme form, the way that it's practiced in America, somebody said love is a drug. It is actually. If you study how love works, the chemicals that it puts in your brain, phenylethylamine and dopamine, things like that. Love literally does make you high. So one piece of Uncle Boyce advice that I read in the book is that you should never, ever, ever make a long-term commitment to somebody in the first 6 months of the relationship, because the first 6 months you're technically a love-based crackhead. You're literally on drugs. Your brain is literally out of whack. That's why people act so crazy when they first start kissing somebody, sleeping with somebody, or whatever. So you got to be kind of thoughtful about who you share that with, because that person then has a lot of power over you. And another thing that they said, just since we're on that topic, is, and I promise we're going to go right back to it. We are still talking about investing, by the way, because when you love somebody, you're investing in something more important than money. You're investing your time, you're investing your love, you're investing your heart, you're investing, your future in this person, right? The other thing that they said is that you should never ever form a long-term relationship or start dating somebody right after you broke up with the previous person. They said that something happens in a breakup where your judgment is really impaired. So you got to give yourself time to cleanse out the previous person before you can move to the next one. So that's a little. I had a friend that didn't listen to that. She broke up with a guy, got married 9 months later, got divorced 9 months after that. I predicted it like clockwork. When I saw it happen, I said, "Ooh, they ain't gonna make it." And 9 months later, she was divorced. I'm not kidding. True story. So let me keep going. All right, so let's get back to the topic. All right, so here's the deal. When you're talking about what's happening with the crash of capitalism and the crack pipe of capitalism, what has happened with your government, and this is going to always be true. This is going to always be true in America. These are the ups and the downs of living in this society. America is a country that has a lot of wealth because we go hard. We roll the dice pretty aggressively. We have a very aggressive economic strategy. For many years, the Federal Reserve kept interest rates insanely low. They really put the foot on the gas. It was like riding the car with somebody who's got a Lamborghini and they're literally going 250 miles an hour. You're going to get to places very quickly in that car. But when that sucker crashes, it's going to hurt. You ain't even gonna survive. You're gonna fly out the windshield and go 300 feet. The car's gonna blow up. It's gonna be mangled, right? There's no such thing as a soft landing when you talk about a car that's going that fast. So especially if the car slams the brakes. So what was going on with the American economy is that for the last 15 years, they have been going 250 miles an hour. And then suddenly they have this thing called inflation. And they say, holy crap, we got this thing called inflation. We got to stop it. So they say, scam, right? And they do the fastest, heaviest rate increase in the history of this country. The Federal Reserve slammed the economic brakes like crazy and somehow thought that wasn't going to damage the car. Well, when you see bank failures, when you start seeing these problems that you're catching in the economic system, well, those are the consequences of slamming on the brakes. Those are the consequences. So right now you're just dealing with this, right? And so let me just tell you something about these bank failures. Look, this y'all really think this is the only one? Do you really think this is that Silicon Valley Bank and Credit Suisse are the only two banks that have these problems? Credit Suisse. And let me just tell you what's interesting about the struggles of both of these banks. Both of these banks made decisions that anybody, even before the fact beforehand, could have predicted that could go very, very wrong. Credit Suisse invested, what was that company? Archegos Capital, Archipagos. I can't remember what it's called. But there's a guy who had 20 billion in assets, and he was borrowing from all these different people. He was borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. He was an inch away from being a Bernie Madoff. He's now being prosecuted for this. And Credit Suisse was one of his major lenders, and they were loaning him money because greed is like love. The same way you can fall in love with a beautiful woman, when they say never trust a big butt and a smile, or you fall in love with a sexy man, well, you can fall in love with that money, and it can also impair your judgment. So because this guy was making so much money, he looked like he could do no wrong. They ran into the same issue that they ran into with Bernie Madoff. Same thing happened with Bernie Madoff. They got to the point where they said, okay, he's so smart, he's making so much money, we're not going to question anything he does. So it turned out that this guy was invested in a really crazy, super risky strategy that ended up causing him to lose a ton of money. Now, someone's saying that you can't hear me, so I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna have to shut this down online. I apologize. So let me hit this button. All right. So, or actually, let me try one thing real quick. Okay. All right. Let me know if you can hear me. Okay, can you hear me? Give me a yes if you can hear me. I'm gonna try one more time. All right. So anyway, so here's the deal. Basically, when you're talking about these situations, these runs on banks, and all this other stuff, a lot of this stuff was really preventable. A lot of this stuff could have been stopped if somebody had stepped in and did their job. A lot of this stuff could have been put to an end if there were regulators, at least regulators that cared enough about doing their job properly that they were actually watching these companies. And the thing is that when money starts getting made, people start getting stupid. When money starts getting made, people get lax. People don't, they just kind of assume everything's okay. And think about this. Think about in your own life, in your own family. Imagine if you're in imagine if you have somebody in your family that makes just a ton of money, or you're at a party and a guy comes in and everybody says, oh, he's a billionaire, he's really rich. Think about how people would treat that person differently. All the women will want to sleep with him. They haven't confirmed that he actually has any money. He could be lying, but a lot of women will be trying to sleep with him. A lot of men, a lot of people will be trying to be friends with him. They'd be trying to hang out with him. Right. A lot of people would want to do business with him. If the billionaire comes up and says, hey, I've got this farmland and I'd like for you to partner with me on the ownership of this property and blah, blah, blah. A lot of people would automatically trust this guy because you believe he has money. Right. And the thing that's funny to me is that there are a lot of people who don't have any money who understand this game very well. They do the fake it till you make it. They pretend like they have lots of money so they can get access to women. They can get access to special relationships. They can get access to other people's money, but they don't actually prove they have anything. So ultimately, what occurred, in my view, with these banks is that when they were making money, everything was good, everything was fine. It's just like when Bernie Madoff was sitting on Wall Street robbing people for decades. Nobody questioned Bernie Madoff because Bernie Madoff was making money, and people that have money just get instant trust that they sometimes do not deserve. The mistakes of Silicon Valley Bank were predictable. The mistakes of Credit Suisse were very predictable. And I'm just really wondering if there's ever going to be a day where the government, the regulators, the people that are supposed to be watching these banks and managing their risk are actually going to do their job. I don't know if that day is going to come because clearly that didn't happen. They're probably going to put more laws in the books. There's no need for more laws in the books. You've got the laws. You just did not enforce them. I'm trying to figure out which bank regulator in California should be prosecuted or held accountable for what happened with Silicon Valley Bank. And also, again, another thing too, remember this. In California, we talked about this yesterday when we were talking about reparations. We had a whole discussion about the reparations proposal in San Francisco, where they want to give $5 million apiece to the black residents of San Francisco for reparations. Every person who complains about that amount of money, I want to see how much smoke you have for the fact that they stepped up and bailed out every single depositor in Silicon Valley Bank. They bailed out every single depositor. If that had been a black bank in a black neighborhood, they would not have done that. And these people, if anybody understands the risk that you're taking, it should be a tech investor. You understood that any deposit over $250,000 is not insured, but you put $30 million in that bank anyway. Well, then you should be losing $29,750,000 of that money because that's the way the game is played. So if you ever want to understand the nature of reparations and the history of reparations, you need to look no further than the fact that we have a government that tends to bend the rules for some people, and then they maintain the rules for other people. And that bending of the rules is what creates wealth disparities in this country. Okay, because you know as well as I do, they would never bend the rules for your black butt. They would never bend the rules for me. They would never bend the rules to make sure we can go fund black-owned schools or go fund black-owned businesses. But they'll bend the rules to go fund Silicon Valley, and that's capitalism. That's how it works. I can't change it. I can only explain how it works, so you can position yourself so you and your family are going to be good. All right. Now I told you guys I'd give you a stock that I like right now based on what I'm seeing in the market, in the economy with all the volatility. That stock is Apple. I am literally going to go over to another app as soon as I get done, and I'm going to buy some shares in Apple because Apple appears to be one of the bastions of safety in the middle of a world of chaos. I don't think that there is a full-blown emergency in the banking system, but you could be on the cusp of something big. So please be very careful. The market went down a lot today. You could end up seeing, another epic stock market crash. So if you are an investor, just make sure you're protecting your portfolio. If you're in the Prime program, we talk about things like put options and things like that to protect against the downside. I would encourage you to really think about those things. So I'm going to get on out of here, guys. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe if you haven't done it. You can find this podcast on Spotify. Just look up the Dr. Boyce Breakdown on Spotify. Also, my new book is called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. It is the number one selling book on Amazon in the public finance category. It's a very good book in the sense, well, I mean, it's my book, but look at the reviews. The reviews will tell you. The reviews are almost all 5 stars, and thank you for leaving a review. And also, if you go to boycewatkins.com, I put up a list of 7 easy ways you can improve your credit score. It's going to be up there for just a few more days, so you might want to grab it while it's available. It's a mini training that can help you in terms of your transition off the corporate plantation or to become an investor, whatever the case may be. So I hope this is helpful to you. I'm gonna check back in with you guys a little bit later. God bless you. Please have a wonderful day, and make sure you hit that notification bell, and you'll be notified when we go live again. I'll see you soon. Take care now. Peace.